we will convene the Board of Selectmen special meeting on Wednesday, May 19th, 2001. I'll start with reading that in accordance with Governor Lamont's executive orders 7B, 7.1, and 9H1, which suspends the open meeting requirement of in-person participation, audio and video of this regular meeting will be simultaneously televised on Channel 79 and YouTube at WGA-TV 79 in order to allow the public to view and listen to the meeting. In-person attendance will not be permitted. There will be no public comment segment on the agenda. First agenda item is Board of Selectmen opening remarks. I'd like to just get that started by saying we're meeting today specifically to identify a date for our town meeting in light of having concluded the last meeting that we had for a number of different reasons, and feeling that it would be best if we looked at a different date where we can have the meeting with the potential of having it in person. At the time that we voted to have the meeting, as we all know, the charter very, very specifically indicates that the third Monday in May 17th this year, is the date for the town meeting. And on April 14th, we did vote as to how we would like that, with the options really being whether we wanted it to do it full remote or whether we wanted to do it remote and hybrid, or remote hybrid. Having not done remote hybrid, the Board of Selectmen did unanimously opt to have it done remotely. And so we held that meeting completely remotely. Since then, needless to say, and that was back in April, things have changed, and there is a broader opportunity for us to consider having the meeting in person. So that is one of the things we would like to discuss today, along with picking a date as to when we would have that. So I wanted to start off with those comments, and if any of the other selectmen on the board would like to say anything at this time, please.
Hey, Mika, Dwight. Yeah, I don't think the meeting went very well the other night. I just thought it was kind of it was embarrassing for us to be on and really not have a scheduled plan of how we were going to check voters or whatever it is. And I think showing their licenses was to me was wrong. I would never, I didn't think that was really required. I know Madison did it, but because one town did it, I don't think it makes it right to have a lot of that information out there, personal information out there. And I'm sure we're going to be hearing from a lot of people about that. So I just wanted to let you know I wasn't happy with that. And all of a sudden it ended. It abruptly, it just then boom, and was gone with no adjournment or anything. So
I'm sure there are others of us who agree with you, Dwight, and certainly I understand and agree with what you're saying. To that end, might I just, along those lines, just to kind of allay any kind of concerns that folks do have, the broadcast is not available to public at all at this point in time. And the only reason it's still in place is to make sure before we delete it that there are no other issues or concerns that we need to be aware of and or compliant of before it is deleted. However, also we did take a look at our technologist was good enough to take a look at the broadcast itself and did identify that there were less than 26 people who viewed this on the YouTube capability. And we were not able to say specifically how many may have seen it on Channel 79, but Altice did also let us know that there is not DVR capability on Channel 79. So if they were viewing it, once it was gone, it was gone. But again, there is no public access. We are looking at the potential of just deleting it and seeing if that's within our purview to do so. And there'll be more to follow as far as that's concerned. So I just wanted to give you an update as far as that, because certainly I understand and we agree as far as that's concerned. Anyone else?
Yeah. So I think, Dwight, we would all agree that the meeting did not go well on Monday. And I think the point of our meeting today is to plan an annual meeting that can go well and be respectful of all our residents and paying attention to our charter. So I think those are the things we need to discuss. With regard to the video, again, I also was extremely concerned. I actually did speak with Tom Hennick today, who is the statewide Freedom of Information officer. And he actually informed me that town meetings are not under FOI. And I said, I don't think most people really know this or understand it. It is because, although it's called by the Board of Selectmen, it is a meeting of all the people. And so it's not an FOI type of situation. And he suggested that I contact someone in the public records administrative offices at the state, and he gave me the number to review with them the specifics. And to me, this is a non-meeting because there was no business conducted, and yet there's a concern about sharing, personal information. And therefore, why would we need to keep record of a non-meeting? So that's the way I have described it. And I will report back to the Board of Selectmen once I do talk to the Public Records Administrator's office.
Can I just say something, Sandy? I just wanted, the meeting did start. There was no business that occurred at the meeting, and you're absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm.
But the meeting was recessed for another date for the Board of Selectmen tonight to schedule the continued recessed meeting that we started but did not conduct any business at.
Okay. Tom also did tell me that there have been other towns that have tried to do something similar, and that there are none that have been very successful. One town tried to create like a check-in process through a breakout room and then let people into the meeting after that. And they also gave up after 2 hours of trying to certify people this way. So we're not the only ones who had this type of experience. It doesn't make it any less embarrassing, but this is a common issue for the towns who actually have annual meetings. I think you're
I'm sorry, I'm speaking. Yep, thank you. Thank you, Sandy. Is there anyone else, any other comments from anyone else? Okay. The next item on the agenda is specifically for us to discuss the continuation of the town meeting that was held on May 17th. And what we're looking to do is schedule the time, the date, the location, and any other matters that are related to that, which is, in this case, very prominently includes what type of meeting we will have. So I think we can begin that conversation, and I will open the floor up to anybody who might have some comments or some points now. Or actually, what I will do is, and Jerry, I'll ask you to just keep me clear on this, but I do believe that the Quinnipiac Valley Health did come out to the town today to take a look at the potential for different sites, specifically for a in-person meeting. And Betsy, I'm not sure. I'm sorry.
Comment on that, Mika. So
go ahead, please.
We looked into 3 sites. One was the auditorium at Amity High School. One was the center building where we typically have our annual town meetings. And the other was in the bays of the firehouse, where if you've been, they have a truck or treat there and have a lot of people have it set up for a large number of people. So those were the 3 areas we asked QVHD to give their opinion on, and they came back favorably on the firehouse bays and the auditorium. Betsy has more information on that. I do want to say the auditorium has 750 seats and a capacity of 804. And Amity would, if we were going to do this, they would like to know soon, because the theater group is practicing and using the auditorium, so we'd have to displace them for an evening. So they prefer sooner rather than later. And there's a number of sort of logistical issues that we'd have to take care of, but that's the main point behind the Amity Auditorium. I also did check with the fire chief, and aside from Tuesday nights, which I guess any night would be available, they'd prefer not a Tuesday. The Firehouse Bay is available for the next few weeks as well. With the Firehouse Bay, we would have a number of logistical issues to take care of, including seats and check-in and a number of other items, but and how to get the people there safely so that they can cross the road safely to parking. And it's been done for the trunk or treats, but it's similar. It'd be a similar setup. Okay.
Tony, just go ahead, Sandy.
I just wanted to ask if there are any restrictions or guidelines, I should say, for using the Amity Auditorium. Do they want people to be every other seat, every other third seat, anything like that they offered up?
Amity didn't have any guidelines other than they said we can use, if we'd like to, a temperature device that they have at the entrance that people can go through and check their temperatures. If we wanted to, they weren't requiring that. The QVH, do you have any opinion on that, Betsy?
They didn't speak specifically about either space. They were comfortable with us using either space. However, both Quinnipiac Valley Health and the state have come out with mask guidelines. And I can just read to the Lamont came out with guidelines just this afternoon that says people should wear a mask when they're inside at a large indoor event. And they should also wear masks when at large outdoor events. So we would need to do social distancing in either scenario, and masks would be required in either scenario.
So probably, yeah, so at least every other seat in the auditorium, and then
Yes.
the bay, we could space the seats out so that they're, far enough apart.
I would just like to say one thing. The Amity is a nice location, but I would be concerned that a lot of people who are cautious about COVID might not want to go inside, regardless of whether there's space seating. And to get the biggest turnout, the idea of an outdoor facility or close to being outdoors would be attractive, I think, to more people. But that's my own personal opinion. It's up to the Board of Selectmen.
I think the outdoor option is of great value, and thank you, Betsy, for your comments as well, because I was going to ask about the mask and what the particulars are. So it's good that we establish that so folks know coming in that they want. But Jerry, I agree. I think the outdoor potential, and even what obviously we're not sure how long this will take, and we don't know what the weather will be. So if the firehouse offers kind of a hybrid solution in the sense of we do have coverage in terms of indoor. We can open up the bays, and there will be plenty of ventilation as if we were outdoors. So I think that certainly is a great option.
And the chief also mentioned that he can also, if it's required, set up a tent, in the back to provide some further coverage if it looks like it's going to be raining that evening.
Thanks. Wonderful, and please thank him for us.
I will. Yeah.
So. Anyone else? Dwight, Joe.
We're all set.
Yeah, well, it's Joe Dye here. I think I would be leaning towards certainly having it in person, and outside of the parking issue, which I think we can handle, I think the firehouse probably is the better option, is my opinion. One other question, assuming we are going to do that in person, and how I guess my question really is, what are we going to require of people to prove that they're able to vote at the town meeting? Because when we used to have it in the gym, we just counted chairs or heads. We didn't ask anybody for anything, and then we went full throttle the other night into people showing their IDs. So I think people need to know ahead of time what would be required, whether it's inside or outside.
And Joe,
or virtual, or in person, I should say.
Good, great thought. And did pose the question to the town clerk, just in terms of reaching out to the registrars of voters to see exactly what it was done. And I do recall, Joe, and I don't exactly recall what it was for, whether it was for a town meeting or something else. I do recall a time at Center Gym where, as folks were coming into the gym, they had a process very similar to when we vote, where people were at the door asking the address and verifying voter. It was a vote because, in addition to verifying that you were a resident and a voter, they also gave everyone a card so that you could vote, so that you could put the card up and people would understand it. That and I remember that having happened, and I'm sure some of you also remember it. But I think my sense is, if we could do something along those lines, the response from the registrars were they can get volunteers, and they will be prepared to do something along those lines. So as folks are coming in, you can verify that their residency, give them a card so that they have a vote, and move forward. Obviously, from a logistical standpoint, with that, what you want to consider is the amount of time it's going to take to do that. So one of the thoughts that, and kind of throwing this out there, is that we select a time for the meeting to start with, but we also offer the opportunity that check-in will start at a period sooner than that, so we don't have 300 people in line all at the same time trying to get through it. And also, we talk and we try to get enough volunteers so that we can do it quickly. So we have, if you have 8 or 10 people, you can split the town up by street, and you can move things along pretty quickly. Verify, give them give them something so that they can vote, and then be seated, and we can get started, kind of thing.
We had since I've been here, the largest town meeting we've had was when the country club purchase was voted on. That was maybe 2009. And that was at the Amity Auditorium. And I believe it was a similar process used at that meeting. And so
that might have been it, Tony.
So there can be definitely, something learned from that experience to help with this one.
So, but the good news is that I'm thinking just logistically from a firehouse standpoint, we could ordering it in such a way as there's one way to get in, so to speak, and we have enough people there checking so that once you're inside, and we can get started.
Another component of this, I think, is informing the public of actually how this will occur. And I have a question about, when do you actually start the meeting and do a count? And I think that needs to be figured out, so it's very clear that a count will be taken at a certain time. If we started the meeting at 6 o'clock, let's say, because we want to provide as much kind of outdoor time as we can, would we start at 5 o'clock to basically get people checked off on the list?
That would be my thought, Sandy. I agree with you as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I just wanted to mention about the parking. Go ahead. Go ahead, Joe.
No, Dwight, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to mention about the parking for the firehouse. What we do use is we use Amity High School and all that as the parking for people, and then we bus people over to the firehouse. We can use the same thing this time, instead of having parking, instead of having people trying to get parking spaces and running around. We can say you can park in Amity High School, have some buses shuttle people back and forth, so we can get them to the event without having people jam up the roads.
Right. We would have to coordinate it with the police to make sure that that there will be a lot of people walking, because people will, of course, park where they can and walk there. So, part of the logistics. So, but my tendency, and just to, go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry, you had started to say something.
Yeah. I just wanted to. So, I'm in agreement with what others have laid out, particularly Sandy, in terms of notifying people of what the process would be and starting early and making it smooth and so forth. But But again, I go back to what I said before. Last year, of course, we had a virtual meeting. We didn't have an issue, but prior to that, we had the in-person at center, and for many years before that, and I don't recall having a problem starting those meetings on time and having an issue where people were. I don't even know that people showed their IDs to get in. I certainly could be wrong, but I guess what I'm really saying is I would like to have this meeting conducted just like we've done every other town meeting in the past. I don't know why we would do it any differently. So
At some point, if you're going to take a vote, you have to be certain that the people who are voting are residents. That's just
well.
something
Listen,
that
I'm
needs
all
to be
for
done.
that, and I'm all for ID for voting for everything. Trust me. But what I'm saying is, have we done? I guess my question is, have we done that in the past for town meetings? Because I'm not sure we have.
I
But
think,
I think we need to know that.
Well, Joe, what I'll offer in terms of what I've experienced, and before I was a selectman certainly, and just as a resident in the past, because I was always curious about it, they set up 250 chairs in the auditorium. If every chair was
Yes.
filled, there was a reason to check people's ID. If there was only half there was only half a room full of people, there was no need because you just moved on. That's the way I thought, and generally for the most part, anytime that I've been there, and I've been to a number, there just weren't 250 people, so we just moved on.
Okay, all right. So what you're saying is everybody came in. If there was not a quorum, we moved on. If there was a quorum, the process would have stopped and they would have gone around and checked everyone's ID. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm suggesting. Yes.
Okay.
That's
right. And that could be
again, that's anecdotal. That's not because I knew what was going on. That's just what I noticed.
so the town clerk told me the town clerk told me the other day that yes, they do check IDs. There's a table outside with where the budget is, the big thick budget, and people pick up the budget as they check their names in.
Okay. And that's fine if that's the way we've done it. But we've also, I mean, it went fairly quickly because we always started those meetings pretty much on time, within 5-10 minutes. We didn't have a logistical problem, I guess is what I'm saying. So
I think we just have to plan though, Joe, that, given what has happened, there may be many more people than have come to an annual town meeting than in the past. And so, yes, it may go extremely smoothly, and that's not an issue. But I think we need to go through the logistics to make sure we have in place and know what will happen if we get 400 people who come.
yeah, no, I'm with you, and I'm all for it. And we need to tell people what that is. And now having established that we did check IDs in the past, then that's what we're going to do now. Let's have a smooth process to get that done. I'm with you.
Okay. So I do like the idea, Mika, of being open early so that people can come and not have to wait on a long line. But I do think that if a long line develops, then we need to know what we're going to do in terms of when the meeting starts.
So
well, I think, Sandy, I think that's right. I think we have to have.
Go ahead, Joe.
No, I think Sandy's right, and I'm all for the start early option as well. But I think we have to be prepared, as she says, and I think the preparation would be, we have people there, many folks who can check people in.
Right.
We just have
so
to have
all you need to do.
Push people.
What you need is
You're clipping, Jerry, and your video stalled, so we're probably not hearing what you're saying. If you can hear us, yep, we lost you.
Am I back now?
Yes, you are.
So you just need to set a firm time for the start of the meeting which goes on the notice that's going to be published, that's going to be on the website. And you can say something like, early sign-in will be available starting at 5 o'clock, but you need to have a definite time to start the meeting, and hopefully everybody's in by, if it's 6 o'clock, it's 6 o'clock, and we're fine.
But
Okay.
again, in terms of respecting the people who came, if there's a long line at 6 o'clock, I don't think we can start the meeting. I don't think that's right.
You're right. You're absolutely right. You don't have to, and you wait until you get everybody checked in.
Well, I agree, but on the other hand, let's say if we're going to start the meeting at 7:30, which is the typical time, and we're going to start check-in at 6, I mean, we're giving people sufficient time. I agree we would wait, but how long should we wait if we allow people an hour and a half to check in prior to the meeting?
Well, first of all, I don't know that we need to wait until 7:30 to start, especially given that the venue is outside. I'll call it outside hybrid. That it might be better to start the meeting earlier, given all these logistical issues that we have. Because if we have more than 250 people, we have to do a line item vote. And that's going to take quite a while.
I agree, and I think that ought to be made clear also to the folks when we set out some of the logistical things, you know, when we notify folks, because I'm not sure everybody understands that. But the others, and I'm all for starting early, Sandy, but we've always started at 7:30, and I don't think we should start too early because we do want to give everyone access, particularly after what happened the other night. And you know, people do work till 5, 6 o'clock these days and so forth. So I don't think we want to start too early.
What I would put out for a suggestion, in my opinion, is 6:30 being a time for a start. It gives us an extra hour for whatever we need to do. But like you said, Joe, it also is sensitive to folks who might be just coming in from a commute or something along those lines.
Right.
You know, the other aspect of it is, and I just don't know this from not having been at the firehouse at night. I don't know if it starts to get dark, if this does go well into the evening, and it starts to get dark, what challenges that might present as well. So, you know, I'm thinking an hour earlier might be enough for us to get that extra time we might need, but also still be convenient for people to come out. That's just my thought. That would be what I would suggest, and you know, certainly open to hear what other folks think.
So then you would open the early check-in if it was 6:30 at 5 o'clock or whatever, or after 5 or whatever, to allow to give them an hour and a half to get there, get in their seats, and everything else, so they can get checked in. So we could start at 6:30. That's what it is.
I think an hour and a half is really significant, flight. But if that's what we decide, that's certainly more is not a problem. You know what I mean? I think less is a problem. You know, I think if you open it up starting at 5:30, you know, you give people an hour, because you got to keep in mind if somebody shows up at 5:45, they're definitely, you know, mulling around or waiting or sitting or doing whatever for 45 minutes. So. But you know, it certainly should help, certainly should minimize the potential for super long lines. I expect that if we started at 6:30, I suspect that 20 after 6 is going to be a line.
Right.
I would think that's when most people are going to show up. But there are those who, if given the opportunity to come early, will come early.
So one of the suggestions might be that if we want to start at 6:30, anybody who's in the line at 6:30, okay, will get checked in and will be part of it. But that's where it stops. Okay, it's just like when you go to vote at the polls. Okay, you can't come after 8 o'clock and expect to vote. Okay, but if you're in line at that time, okay, you can go through and vote. So I think that would make sense. So I like the suggestion of 6:30. I like the suggestion of opening at 5:30 so that people can come and check in. And I do think we should have a rule about if you are in line at 6:30, you will count for the vote. Otherwise, no. Because at some point we have to cut this off so that we can actually do the business that we're there to do.
Correct.
What others think.
My only comment on that, Sandy, is if it's gone. Sorry, let somebody else go.
No, go, Mika.
My only comment on that is if I don't know that we start the vote, and Jerry, I guess this is more of a just in terms of how this would actually work. Do we, as of 6:30, if the moderator opens the meeting, is that, and there's 250 people who are or more who are registered, do we immediately start on the vote process? Because then I completely agree with Sandy that that's when it's got to stop, and you just wait until the rest of those people are in. Otherwise, I would say you wait until you actually get to a voting point, and if it takes you 15 more minutes for us to go through logistics and meeting logistics, then as long as you're there before the first vote is taken, that's fine. But I don't know.
Once we have a quorum or not a quorum, that's declared. But then, before any votes would be taken, isn't there, as I recall, a presentation from the town
or public comment? That's exactly my question, Joe. That's exactly what I was referring to.
Yeah, I think so. Tony,
I think there usually is a short presentation by the moderator, and
Typically, I'll report the facts of the budget for the.
right.
Correct. You're correct, Joe.
Right.
Yeah, you usually have a little slideshow, as I recall. So
That's correct.
I guess what I'm saying is, at 6:30, probably gets us to 7, so the people who were in line at 6:30 should be in time to vote if there's a quorum. If there would, So I think we're okay there.
Okay, so the cutoff at 6:30 for people in line.
Right.
Okay.
Because we do have to actually have an accurate count so that the 60% number is clear in terms of what it takes for either a yes or a no. Right? Again, I want to make sure we all understand this and that it's the correct interpretation of what is stated in our charter.
I agree, Sandy, based on what I've read. So, Dwight, thoughts on what we've discussed so far?
No, I think that's fine. I think if we start at 6:30, target start at 6:30, that's the time. Open it up at 5:30 to allow those people and get seated and whatever. And then if we could start at 6:30, and then once we get a count on the voters, then as Sandy says, we have to make sure that we know what 60% is. So in case there is a vote against or whatever, at least we have a baseline to work off of.
And I think that has to be announced by the moderator, exactly what the number is.
Right.
60%.
Right.
So
it's got to be right.
If we have 300 people, it's 60% of 300. If we have, 250 exactly.
So I think you all got the charter.
Yes.
Did you all get the charter sections from Jerry Shaw?
Yes.
We did.
Yes.
Keep in mind that 250 count has to be present for every single line item vote.
Correct.
So if it drops below 250, believe you don't vote anymore on the line items. You have to be aware of that.
Right. If it's marginal in terms of if you're near the line, it's important that people stay around till the end if that's what they want to do, if they want to vote. But if it goes below it, Jerry, if I'm understanding the charter correctly, at that point in time the vote stops and the meeting is concluded with only those that we had enough to vote for being changed. Is that
correct?
Right. So we have to have actually a count at the beginning of the meeting or the voting. Okay. And then for each vote, we need to know if people left or not.
Right.
Now, I do have one other question, Mika, and this has to do with, can there be an initial motion made to approve the budget, and that's voted on if we have more than 250 people? And if we have more than 60% who say, yes, we approve the budget, can that end the meeting? If there's not 60%, then actually you do need to go through line item by line item. Is that a possibility?
I'll just tell you, the charter does not provide for that at all. It does say, it does say that every line item has to be given an opportunity to vote on. So I'm thinking that vote, some people could be very upset who are watching the charter and say, no, I want to look solely at the Board of Education lines 705 and not worry about the whole charter, worry about the whole budget. So I think that is a great idea. I wish the charter was like that, but I don't think that's what it says, and it would be totally contrary to the charter.
Well, I know that at every meeting, Matt reads the amount for each department, and that is why. Right. So, okay. So I think it needs to be made clear that we can't just vote it up or vote it down. The only way to actually change the budget allocation is to go through department by department, okay? And there have to be suggestions from the public, the people who are voting, as to what they want it to be. This is not a Board of Finance or Board of Selectmen decision. Okay, it's really the voters, and they have to vote on what they want it to be.
That's not to say, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Jerry, but that's not to say that the Board of Finance, Tony, the Board of Selectmen can't indicate when there is a question or when there is, get some input and feedback in regards to why it is what it is and before the vote is taken, obviously.
Right. I totally agree, Mika. Right. This should not just be where we just sit there and watch. I mean, I think that we should actively participate and help to clarify issues that people bring up or correct misstatements that are made. I think that's the only fair way to do this. And I do think, Tony, maybe even in your opening comments, to repeat some of the things that you said for the preliminary budget hearings in terms of how our budget is basically divided up. What has been the change for the town portion of it, separate from education, and the fact that the positions have been reduced so that, again, there's a common knowledge across all the people who are there.
I do plan to each Sandy, and I also, we will have department heads there so that they can explain in more detail what a budget line is for, and also explain what the ramifications would be in their mind, at least if something was changed. What would that mean?
Okay.
Tony, one thing I'm sorry, Sandy, are you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
One thing I did want to just make sure I understood correctly. The Amity Board of Education referendum was passed just recently. That was obviously part of when you look at the budget summary, that's part of the overall number in terms of our overall budget. But that was approved, so that can't be impacted. Am I correct in understanding that?
That's my understanding, correct, Jerry? That you cannot. There's no authority to change the Amity portion of the budget.
Correct.
Okay.
I just like to
make sure.
I just want to say one more thing, Sandy. What you said is absolutely correct. The charter doesn't provide making a motion, I want to adopt the whole budget. And it also doesn't provide for somebody getting up and say, I want to reject the whole budget. You can't do either one of those motions. You got to go line by line.
Right.
I think
Jerry and Jerry.
Yeah.
Jerry, Joe Dye. I think that's absolutely correct. I just think that when we notice and tell everybody that when this meeting is and put things on the website, and since we're anticipating that we may have a quorum where we haven't really anticipated that in many years, I think that we should spell out in outline form or some kind of executive summary form what the process is and what the charter says in terms of how this meeting is conducted and what just, just lay out that it has to be a line item vote, because if we don't do that, we're going to have another situation at this meeting where it's just going to be a little
Right.
bit chaotic.
And
That's a good point, and we could do a very short synopsis for the website. Keep in mind that there's that language in the warning that says that actually refers to what has to do. You can't adjourn the meeting until each and every line item is given an opportunity for a vote. But it'd be good if we do it in a simple narrative form as well.
right.
Right.
So can I make one other point that just like you can't vote up or down the whole budget, you can't vote what you think the mill rate should be. All right. So the only thing that we can do is approve or change what the actual budget is by each department. That's what we're voting on.
By each line item within the department.
Line item. Right.
No, it's
Right.
I thought it said, if I read the charter correctly, it said the line items on the budget that was sent out to people, and that's
Right.
specifically,
That's this.
yeah.
Okay.
No, that's just a summary. Unfortunately,
I'm sorry. Go on, Jerry.
that's not line by line.
No, from my perspective, this is a line. Okay. People can comment. Okay. It's one line per each department. Okay. And that if people want to comment about, oh, there's too many people, or you shouldn't be spending this much on supplies, they can do that. But we can't go through every line item in every department. That would be crazy. Why would we do that?
That's what the charter says. My suggestion is that the moderator call each department, which is what you have there.
Right.
And say, no, but then say, there are different expenditures under each department, and you have the list that you were just given, the big volume. Is there anything in that department that anyone wants to make a comment on, or increase, decrease, or eliminate? Because that's what those are not line items that you're looking at. That's department by department. Somebody may want to cut the salary of the superintendent, for example, and not want to touch anything else. So you've got to say the line item of the superintendent is line 104. I hereby move that we cut it by $30,000. You
Jerry,
can't.
but it seems to refer to notice, and it says the warning which gives notice of the meeting shall specify that the town meeting shall consider each and every recommended budget item. The recommended budget item are those on the sheet that Sandy just showed.
Yes.
It doesn't seem, I mean, people don't know what each individual necessarily know what each individual item. We have a 6-inch binder for that. So it seems to say, at least the way that I'm reading it, is it seems to indicate, and I'm certainly not a lawyer here, so Joe, you might want to chime in on this as well. But it just seems to say it seems to be in conjunction with the notice, and the notice, the line items that are on the notice are specific to the departments. It's each department, not each item within the department. That's just the way I'm reading it, and the way I would read it as a resident.
So what happens if somebody wants to?
Can you cite the Jerry, Mika, Sandy? I'm looking at it. Can you cite the particular paragraph section?
Yeah, it's H, Joe,
section 6-2, 6-2H.
H.
6-2H.
So I think
okay, I see it. All right.
So I think what we can do is say we are defining line item, okay, as the department budget. We've given them all the details. So if they have a comment of what they want to change in that and why, they have all that information and should say that to us.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead, Tony.
So let's assume somebody says, we want to cut the Board of Selectmen by $50,000, and it gets approved. Who actually determines what in the Board of Selectmen budget gets reduced by $50,000? You cut this for selectman salary? Do you cut legal fees?
That's the question. That's a good question.
Tony, doesn't it further indicate that the Board of Finance would then need to
I don't know.
Within,
I don't know. It may, but they meet and set the mill rate, but I wasn't sure if it says that they actually determine.
The Board of Finance has finished their duties. They are done. All they have left is to set the mill rate based on what the annual meeting says the budget is going to be. So Tony's question is very relevant. I may be sitting at the meeting and I may not like 12 patrolmen in the police department. And that's the line item, but a budget line item that I want to be concerned about. If you don't do it that way, then I guess you leave it to the commission of the board to make a decision as to how they want to cut it. But that's not inconsistent. That's not consistent with what the people really want to do, because then it's still left to the discretion of each department. But it's your decision. If you want to do it the other way, I think I guess it's okay. It's certainly
Well,
quicker.
we have to follow the charter.
Of course.
And I
We
guess
have to follow the charter, of course. And the charter 62H. I read the charter to mean that that final adjournment of the annual meeting shall not take place until an opportunity shall have been given to present motions, if any, addressed to each recommended budget item.
And
I think that's
that is not the department budget. That's each item within the department.
so.
I agree with Jerry. Yes, I'm agreeing with Jerry's interpretation.
Now, what we can do, Sandy, is the moderator can say, as I said before, at Board of Education, is there any line items in the Board of Education that people want to have a motion on? And then they come up and they say what they wanted to say. I don't think he doesn't have to go read each one. That would take 6 weeks. He can just say, come up and give us your line item that you're concerned about.
Right.
But I think that when the vote occurs, you're voting as to whether or not those changes should be made. Okay? Because it is not the Board of Finance's responsibility to go back and make changes, or the Board of Selectmen. It's the townspeople who are saying, we don't approve of this number, we want it reduced to that number. And it's not the overall, it is specifically what changes do you want?
And that's why you got to do the line item. That's why it says line item, not department.
That's right. If someone comes up and says, I think this line item that's 100,000 should be 50,000, and makes a motion for that gets put to vote.
Correct.
I don't disagree with that. Okay. All I'm saying is that I think that for purposes of organization, we're going to go through each department that's on here. Okay. We have a total number. And to say, for any of you who are here, do you have specific issues with any of the detailed line items in that budget? Come up and tell us what you want to see, and then there can be a vote, and that line item within that budget would be changed, right?
Yes, agreed. I agree with that, yes.
But if you go to 6.2.1, okay, a budget here, and the recommended budget, the amount which the Board of Finance recommends be appropriated with respect to each request for appropriation listed in the preliminary budget. Listed in the preliminary budget. What do we list in the preliminary budget? We list the department.
Actually,
budgets, not each slide item.
the preliminary budget, if you go get the full preliminary budget, which is online, it contains all 750 or 800 line items.
It always has.
All the detail is there.
Yes.
Okay. Then
Yeah, no,
okay.
it's yes. Yeah.
But I think what people need to understand is that we'll do this department by department.
Correct.
But you can't vote up or down that budget number without citing which specific line items within that budget you want changed to what.
Yes.
Yes, I agree, and I think that's the
I
whole
agree
key
too.
that
Okay.
we make that clear on the website or wherever, because otherwise, again, it's going to be very chaotic when people think they can show up and just start, aggregating numbers and saying, we don't agree with that, we don't agree with that. It's got to be line item by line item.
So that document you just held, Sandy, that document you just held up
Yes.
is only relevant for naming the department head. Other than that, it's irrelevant. And then you go to the other budget that has the 700 items where people will say, I want to cut line 703 in the Department of Education, in the Board of Education.
Mm-hmm. And so I guess Go ahead,
Go
Joe.
on, Tim.
No, go ahead.
Well,
No,
I'll jump in.
that wasn't me. That was me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mika.
Um, No, that's quite all right. That's quite all right. To that end, though, one of the things that I'm thinking we might want to do, and this is probably toward Betsy, is consider making sure it's really clear on our website, because I know a few people contacted me during the meeting the other day asking where they could find the budget information, and I found it pretty, I didn't think it was hidden or anything like that, but certainly I'm wondering if there's a way that we can make sure it's very prominent that this is what it is, and also possibly add information like Joe, Sandy, and the rest of us are talking about, and Tony, your presentation, summaries, things of that nature that might help people understand a little better, because what we are saying basically is that we need to review 700 to 800 line items and take a vote on each one, or do we wait until somebody says, okay, I have a problem with this particular line item, and then we move forward, or how's that work?
Well, someone would have to make a motion regarding a particular line item, and that has to get put to the 60% vote.
So like Sandy said, we start off by saying the first department is Board of Selectmen. Are there any motions related to the Board of Selectmen? Nobody says anything, we move to the next department. If somebody has a particular item they're looking to change, they put forward a motion and we discuss it.
That's correct. That's absolutely the
Okay.
right way to do it.
Okay, so, yeah, just so it's clear, just so everyone is on the same page. Okay. Sandy, I'm sorry, were you going to say?
Oh, no, that's fine. That's great.
So Betsy,
Okay, so we have the time and the process and kind of what we're going to put on the web. Do we have a date?
No, not yet. So let's make
So
sure
we
we
need to
agree on the
discuss
things
it.
we're talking about so far. We'll just tick them off. We're not making a motion yet, but in consideration of making a motion, we have to make sure we know we're going to make a motion, or somebody can make a motion at any point in time. But are we okay with the firehouse? Are we okay with the 6:30? Are we okay with the process that we've outlined in terms of checking in? And now, can we talk about the date? If somebody's not thinking that they have other thoughts on other options, let's hear them now, as far as those items are concerned. Okay.
I'm good with everything that I think we've agreed to.
Okay.
So am I.
As far as the date, Joe Crisco, you good? I think you're nodding, Joe. I don't know if you can hear me or if you're on mute.
We can't hear you, Joe. Crisco.
Yep, you are on mute. There you go. Let me take. Oh no, I can't take you off of mute. You are on mute, Joe. Dwight, in the meantime. There you go, Joe.
Yeah, I'm basically okay. We just got to make sure whatever we tell everybody is crystal clear, so when they show up, they know exactly the process. We're not going to be in there and debating everything.
Right.
Before it's extremely clear. And then we also got to tell them, if there is votes being taken, if they leave, the vote stops. We have to tell them they should be there for the entire time, as long as, so that we have a quorum.
The one thing I'll say, I wholeheartedly agree with you, but the one thing I'll say is we can't just say that. I think what we need to do is we need to understand how that's going to happen. Who's going to do that, so that it actually is executed on, because I completely agree with you, but I don't know how that happens. Like, that's why I'm saying to Betsy, what can we put on the website, and Tony, what information does he have that will help in terms of outlining? Jerry, is there a way to put a document together that kind of outlines what we've just described in terms of the process, so that people do have something that they can reference and say, okay, here's what to expect. Here's what to expect.
Well, we can definitely do a plain language short summary for the website when the notice for when the meeting is and the time of the meeting, we'll put that on there. And then somebody at the meeting, right at the beginning of the meeting, whether it's the moderator or Tony or someone else, or you, Mika, or Sandy, or Joe, I don't care who it is, gets up there and explains exactly what the process is. I will be happy to meet with anybody and go over it if you have any questions about the legalities of it. Because this is a very complicated charter, and it's probably the only charter like it in the state. There's nothing else like this. This is an unusual, situation. So everybody's got to understand it.
Jerry, I'm wondering if there's a way to do something so that people don't walk into the meeting with an incorrect expectation. Well, as long as they've at least, if they go onto the website or if they have a place that we can reference that they can go to. If they don't check and they just come in with whatever expectation they have, it is what it is. But I'm just wondering if there's a way that we could actually, if there's something that they can reference even before they get there so they can understand it.
We'll do something for the website. I don't know how else we can do it.
Okay, I think that is probably the only way we can do it. So.
Okay.
Right.
Well, and we can pass that out at the meeting too as they come in.
Yep.
Correct.
Yeah.
You want a handout? Right, Joe?
Yeah. Yes, I think a handout then would be appropriate too. As they come in to
So the other logistical issue is keeping track of how many people are actually there for each vote.
So let me just, if there is a vote taken and we have 250 to start and the vote comes up shy of 250, say 245, that means that budget item is not changed. It all goes on to say that each vote has to be more than 250. It says the total number of eligible voters present and voting when each question is put to a vote equals not less than 250.
Right. So in plain English, people have to understand that, if they want to affect any significant change line item by line item, they have to maintain that quorum of 250 straight through the meeting. Yes.
And there could be people, Joe, there could be people who don't want to vote on a question, and then the vote is less than 250, and then there's no change.
That's right. But I think if we tell them up front, then nobody can claim foul, right? I mean, tell them that, for any change to be made, it requires a 250 quorum or 250 eligible voters voting on that particular motion for change.
Correct.
Right. I'm still going to ask this question again because obviously I don't understand it. The 60%, doesn't it need to be of the number of people who are voting? That's what's necessary to change a budget line item.
Correct.
That will vary based on how many people are in the room.
Correct. But you don't even look at the 60% unless the total people voting were 250.
I agree. And so let's say for the first, 10 or 12 departments, people will stick around. And when it gets to be 8:30, people want to go home. And so then the number will change. But it's like, we do need, for this to be legitimate, to know, yes, that there's 250. But then again, if there's 400, the 60% is of the 400, not of the 250, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So you just have to count each motion could theoretically have a different total count.
Exactly, Joe.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And it means that
so,
you
so
actually
it's
have to
60% of each motion. Right.
And it shows that you
60%
actually have to count every time.
Yes.
I'm bringing my pillow.
It could be a long process. Yes.
Yes.
This discussion may promote a discussion of a charter change at some time, but
Oh God.
That's for another day.
Amen.
Yep. Yep.
So the next,
How about the date? I
that's what I
don't
was
want to
gonna-
push through. Yeah, how about the date?
Okay, let's talk
So
about the
we
date.
can kind of move forward.
the charter indicates between 5 and 30 days. Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong.
5 and 30 days, no, not less than 5, not more than 30 days. And the governor has today signed an executive order which extends all the executive orders concerning municipalities to June 30th. So we can, instead of publishing in the newspaper the way our charter requires, we can publish the notice of the meeting on the website, which is a nice thing.
I will say personally, I feel that so we do not get people who object to the decision. That yes, we have sent them out the numbers that we want them to consider. The notice usually is 10 days, and we do publish in the paper. And we should do the same for this next meeting. It should not just be limited to the website. That's my personal feeling. I think it should be discussed amongst the board.
There's no one that reads the legal notices in the newspaper.
Well,
There's no one that reads the legal notices in the newspaper.
I understand, Jerry, but all I'm saying is that to cover our bases and to say we did everything that we could, given that there were many mistakes that were made on Monday, that we're going to follow that process. That's what I am suggesting. It can be posted in the New Haven Register. Okay, that's very quick turnaround time. They will easily accept the money for posting.
That usually costs a couple $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, and no one reads it. But I'll do. We can do whatever the board wants to do.
What did we do for the initial meeting notice?
We followed the executive order, which said you do not publish in newspapers and you on the website, which is what is in effect now.
We didn't post any legal notice then for the town meeting we just held on the 17th.
No, because the executive order says you do not do that. You do it on the website.
That's fine. That's fine, Jerry. Then that's consistent, and I don't have an issue with that. I do think that we need to give appropriate notice to town residents about when this will be. And yes, it can be a postcard that goes to every household. But we need to do something. I don't think it can just be on the website. I don't feel that that's appropriate.
So here's another issue, and then we're going to be running into some timeline issues because we are in a time crunch. We were thinking of doing an email blast to the town. I think the town has 1,500 names that we can send out immediately to notice people, to give notice. We can do as much as we can online, and I guess you can do a postcard. I don't know how we're gonna how the notice. First, you got to decide on what the date is. Keep in mind there is a possibility that we have to have a second meeting. If you read the charter, if of the changes are more than 10%, you need to have a second meeting. If we start talking about a second meeting, we're going to get into a crunch on when the tax bills go out. Tony knows this better than I. There's a date by which we must send out the tax bills, or else we won't have any. It'll be a real problem. So there is time limitations. We did a notice, that document that you were holding up, Sandy, that everybody got, and the charter does say that notice has to go out to all the households. That's a big job, and the printer probably needs 3 days to do that. So what we're going to do is consider that the meeting was recessed. The same document. There's no change to that document except the date. We don't want to send that document again.
I agree with that, Jerry, but I think that we need notification about the change of the date and the time and where people can reference the expectations for how the meeting will go. And that should go out to every household. And that could be a postcard. It doesn't need to be a formal, letter in an envelope.
And Betsy, just out of curiosity, Betsy, when does the newsletter come out? I should know because we get it all the time, but I'm not sure what time when that comes out. You know, with Beth's
The
comment.
newsletter, we're hoping to have it at the printer by next Tuesday or Wednesday because the printer is taking Monday the 31st off for the holiday and also planning on either closing or leaving early on the Friday before, so Friday the 28th. Normally we try to get it into households the first of the month.
Okay.
Right. But you could do a postcard if we agreed on the logistics. Okay, you could do a very quick postcard. It could go out to every household. You don't need the household name. It's the same distribution process that you use for the newsletter. It's through the postal service. I think it's called Every Household, right? Something like that. And it goes out to everybody in the town. Because I think waiting for the newsletter is waiting too long.
Yes.
Okay.
No, there shouldn't really be any objection to what Sandy is advocating. I certainly don't have an objection to it. To move this forward, if anyone has an objection to it, let's hear that. Otherwise, everyone needs to get the notice. Let's get a date and let's get the postcard out and do all the other things we've talked about and have the meeting.
So, Mika, I just want to make one comment that we would prefer to have the date on or before June 4th. That would give us plenty of time to get the tax bills out. If it's the week after June 4th, every day after that could, we could run into, not guaranteed, but we could start to run into timeline issues.
Tony, doesn't that have a problem if we do, hopefully this will never happen, have to have a second meeting or we
If
can?
we have a second meeting, then we will definitely have timeline issues, yes.
That's why I think you gotta have this meeting earlier than June 4th to reserve some time in case we do need to have that second meeting. And we were talking about next Thursday as a date for the new meeting. That will give you plenty of time. And if something happens at this meeting that we need a second meeting, we probably will be late, but we won't be that late.
Well, I have another question for you, Tony, in terms of the tax bills. Obviously, if they're delayed, okay, we still need money to run the town. Are we allowed to use the fund balance money and then return it as tax money starts coming in?
Yes, it would be a cash flow issue more than, used, because eventually the money would come in. So
Right.
it's more of a cash flow issue, not necessarily a permission type of thing. Right.
But Tony, we do, Tony, what about the charter requirements about supplemental appropriations? I'm not sure that you can, maybe you can use the reserve fund, but I don't know whether the charter says you've got to have the Board of Finance approve anything up to $50,000.
Well, let me.
Hey, Mika, can I interject? Mika?
Forward.
Hey,
I'm
Mika?
sorry.
Mika,
Yes, Joe, I'm just going to fall on you.
yeah,
Timing.
two things. I think it's important to let people know that we need a mill rate soon so we can collect taxes in June. And secondly, will we inform the police chief that we need police there for crowd control and traffic control once we set the date?
Yep. And in terms of the soon, now Sandy and Joe Dye are indicating that I believe, if I'm hearing it, you're talking 10 days, Sandy. And I'm just looking to see input from Dwight and Joe Crisco in regards to that 10 days. Joe Dye, you agreed with Sandy, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Dwight, Joe, where do you stand on that? Do you based on what Jerry's saying, obviously the sooner we do it, the better opportunity there is to get the tax bills out on time.
Agreed.
And that's in case there's something that does occur where we have to have a second meeting, which would be, I believe, Jerry, a 10% budget difference from what the proposed budget was, correct?
Correct.
So,
Agreed.
So, thoughts?
Joe agrees with that.
Okay. And Dwight?
Yeah, okay. I mean, yeah, we've got to get it done. but we have to make sure we notify everybody properly and well in advance. That's my only concern.
Okay, so June 1st or 2nd, okay, would be Tuesday or Wednesday. And that would give us, if we posted what we need to post, even on the town website, on Friday, that gives us the 10 days.
Right.
And
So-
Tony, let me, I hear you on that, Sandy. If, as you know, Jerry alluded to, if, for example, there is a change of more than 10%, we would then need to have a second town meeting, and the timing on that is 7 to 20 days, Jerry, I believe. So if we were to
Not
meet
less than
on the,
7, more than.
So,
so
my-
if we were to meet on the 1st, for example, that would mean the soonest we could set up another town meeting would be the 8th or the 9th. And so my question is to Tony, what are the implications of that? You know, if we're looking at the 8th or the 9th type of a thing, how significant is that, so we can consider that when we're making this decision?
so I would say that my question to that would be, we really get most of our tax revenue the last 2 weeks of July. So if the tax bills go out late, let's say they go out a week late, do people still have until the 31st of July to pay? In other words, if that's the case, the cash flow probably won't really be impacted all that much. If, however, you have to give everyone another week, that's the part I'd be unclear about.
You're saying the 4th. That's what your date on the 4th, or are we talking the?
No, what you're talking about. If it's the 4th or the 7th or thereabouts, it's fine. We should be fine.
Let's do it.
Tony, I'm not, you might be right, but I'm not necessarily confident 100% that we can just use the reserve funds without a budget, but that's something that you know better than I.
Yeah, we wouldn't use the reserve funds if we start collecting revenue, because we collect a lot more revenue in July than we ever need. We don't start using that revenue until, we have plenty of cash flow until probably usually most of the year. We don't actually need
Okay,
that,
good.
because we collect a lot more and we don't use it. We use it throughout the 6 months.
So for the purposes of our discussion, if we were looking for 10 days, and it would be obviously 10 days from tomorrow, we would be looking at, tomorrow would be the 20th, so we would be looking at the 2nd, let's see.
The 1st or the 2nd
7,
of June.
8, 9, 10. So yes, it would be because the holiday on Monday, so it would be
Right.
the 1st or the 2nd.
Right.
So in deference to what the potential problems could be, the 1st would be a better date from my perspective, only because it would be sooner.
I would say that the fire department had asked if we can avoid a Tuesday, because that's when they have their
Tuesday.
meetings.
There you go. Good
Yeah.
point. Good point. So now we're on the 2nd.
Second, yeah.
Thanks. So it would be 2 weeks from today, basically.
Yes.
Certainly a good amount of notice for the public.
And I think that's
And then
important. I think that's important. And it shows that we are, taking them into consideration, want them to be able to make plans, and that it's important that people come and tell us what they think.
And then if a second meeting is required, the soonest we could do that would be the 10th.
Okay.
So Tony, we're really looking at the 10th and worst case scenario of the 10th.
Okay.
Right.
Fine.
And I think that we should have all the materials necessary that we might need, okay, to get the notice out for that second meeting. Hopefully we don't have to use it. But if we do, it's ready to go. That we're not, creating it after that
Yeah.
meeting.
Go
Yeah,
for it.
logistically, I don't know involved in that Sandy, but in terms of expense and things of that nature. But I understand, and anything we could do, we should do. I agree with you.
Right. And I'm talking about drafting all the material that we would need. What goes up on the website, what kind of, postcard would we need, just figuring that out so that we can execute it the next day and not lose any more time. And hopefully we don't need it.
Understood.
All right, go for it.
Any other discussion, anything, any other logistics we should be considering, any other comments we want to make from just in terms of anybody who might be watching? And I think we've set some expectations. We've certainly outlined how we expect this to go. And we can take it from there. And Betsy, again, getting this on the website, are there any challenges we should be aware of, or is this something that can be done and make it prominent enough so that people are it's easy to find? It's front page kind of thing.
Absolutely. It would be the lead story on the homepage. It currently is the link to the annual town meeting, and so I would just replace that with the new information along with the succinct summary that you've all mentioned, along with links to the preliminary budget hearing presentation and the proposed budget.
A banner on once you link over to when it says, town meeting, and you link over to that, there's another link that goes to the 187 page budget. But it's just a link by itself. If a banner could be put there that says budget or something, Betsy, and I don't know if I'm asking a lot, but that's just something to consider. So it's evident to folks that if you want to see what the budget is, here it is.
The website is pretty formulaic, but I could certainly find a way to put the link in the text, possibly in multiple places. So it'd be a lot difficult to miss.
Great.
Perfect. Okay. Anything else? Anybody else has anything, or does anyone want to make a motion?
Move.
I mean, do you want formal approval? But you make the motion, Mika. That's fine.
No, I think before we've had a lot of discussion to come up with the conclusions at this point in time. I think we're just at a point where we need to make a motion, and that's what we have.
No, you definitely need a motion to have the recess meeting of the annual meeting be held on June 2nd at 6:30 p.m. at Firehouse with the address of the firehouse.
So move.
No, Jerry can't make that motion.
I can't make a motion.
Right.
So move.
But
So move.
Make a motion. Say it.
Joe, would you like to make that motion?
Yes, so move.
So
there's two.
So
let me just make sure, Jerry. There's a few components of the motion. I don't know the address of the firehouse, so I don't know how to.
It's 100 Center Road.
100 Center Road, right?
100 Center Road.
Okay. Why don't
we're going?
Go ahead, Mika.
So what we're doing is we're the motion will include the date, the venue, type of meeting, that it's in person, and I thought there was another component that we talked about, and I'm not sure if we captured it. Or is that an
Early registration. Remember?
Yes. Do you want to put in that the early registration is at 5:30?
Yes.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you. That was it.
Okay, and that there will be social distancing and masks required. I think that needs to be part of it.
Okay. I'll make a motion that we schedule town meeting for June 2nd.
It's the recess town meeting. The recess town meeting.
Thank you. Make a motion that we schedule the recess town meeting for Wednesday, June 2nd, to be held at the Woodbridge Fire Department facility at 100 Center Road. Begin at 6:30 with early registration to begin at 5:30. The meeting will be in person, and it will require the appropriate social distancing, and it will require masks for those who will participate and be at that meeting.
Second.
Just to be clear, that this is a recess meeting from the annual meeting, which was held on May 17th remotely. So this is just a recess. We recessed, we came out, and this is just a continuation of that meeting.
And Jerry Shaw, did you get all that I just said?
Sure,
Including
and I will
the
send it to a couple of people for checking first thing tomorrow morning. I do have
Appreciate it.
one question. The printer will need the copy tomorrow for it all to get out in a timely manner. So I want everybody to think about that as we do the copy.
Okay.
This is the postcard, Jerry?
Yes.
Okay.
And the postcard we can do that during discussion. I believe Joe Crisco seconded that motion. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes.
Yes.
So, and we can have discussion on it as far as, and maybe that's appropriate time for us to talk about the postcard a little bit. Can we just identify what's going to be on the postcard to make it as expedient as possible?
Well, it's like, it's an invitation, okay? Date, time, location,
Mm-hmm.
the early registration,
Mm-hmm.
social distancing and masks are still
Mhm.
required, okay?
Mhm.
And then I would actually say something about more procedural details available on the town's website, and I would
Yep.
list the website.
Okay.
And
Yep.
is it possible, Betsy, to list the actual link that will take them to where they'll get this information versus just woodbridgect.org?
It is
Or does that
possible,
not
but it's a
really make
load
a
of
difference?
gibberish. So you
Okay,
run
so
the risk of someone mistyping and
Mm-hmm.
not
Yeah.
ending up at the
Yeah,
proper
no,
spot.
that's great.
Yeah.
It's not a link. You're right.
Right.
You're right.
Sandy,
So woodbridge.org.
do you want to say something about outside weather permitting? That would make people feel a lot more comfortable on wanting to come, I think.
Yes, Jerry, actually, I would
Yep.
like to add that this
That-
will be
that's a
held at
great point.
the fire department with the open bays and the tent to be, so that it will be an outdoor environment.
Correct.
Change it.
That's a great point, Jerry. I think that will encourage more people to come.
How about ID? You're gonna mention the ID is required?
No, you don't have to mention that.
No, that's mention it. All right.
So this is going to be in the bays, right? So they're going to move the trucks. Sean's going to move the trucks out.
Right.
It's going to be in that 4,000 square foot bay opening.
Right, but both doors will be open, so there's air flowing through. I think that's the important part.
Yeah, you can do. You can do that. But I'm just saying it's going to be held inside, but the door. It's not going to be an exterior thing. It'll seem exterior, but it's inside. So.
Right. Well, outside environment. I mean, again, I think it's important for people to know that if once you open up both the front and the back bays, you get a nice breeze through there.
And if it's a beautiful night, you might be able to arrange it to right outside the bays in the back. You may be able to have it purely outside.
Right. There are logistics regarding chairs and things of that nature that we also have to take care of, but that could be done at another time. So there is a motion in place. Is there any further discussion as relates? Jerry, do you have enough for the motion, Jerry Shaw?
Yes, I do.
And then the other thing we got to worry about is busing. If we're going to do this, we should have something on the website that where they're going to park. People are encouraged to park. We should have encouraged to park at Amity High School and bus people over instead of having mass jam of traffic in front of the firehouse and around the town green for people trying to find spots. That's all.
I think that all that can be posted on the website. That doesn't need to go on the postcard.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Joe Dye. Joe Crisco.
No.
Joe Dye, you might be on mute. I don't. So is there any additional discussion? So
I'm
call
all
the vote.
set, Joe Dunn. All the
I'm all
vote.
the vote. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous vote is passed. Action as appropriate is taken. The next item on the agenda is adjournment.
Motion to
Thanks
adjourn.
everybody for your
Second.
So we are adjourned, and I thank everyone for your time and really enjoyed the conversation and the discussion. Thanks, folks.
Yeah.
Great job.
Thanks, everyone.
you very
Thank
much, Mika. Thank
Great
you.
job.
Thank you.